What's up guys, EverLight here and welcome to Tranceportal in the studio with EverLight. So today I've got a really awesome episode which has had lots of requests from a lot of music producers. This one is all about how to build deep, wide and thick percussion. And now if you can get this right, it's going to add a lot of drive and a lot of depth to the groove of your track. So today we're going to be talking about how to layer it and how to process it. So let's get started. Welcome to the studio again, guys. So the number one thing to remember about how to get thick and deep and wide sounding percussion is it's all about the detail. So what I've got in front of me here is an example from a recent track of mine. I'll give it a quick play. And what I'll do is I'll dive into each individual element and tell you what I've done and why I've done it. I generally split my layers of percussion into three different types. The first one is your backbone percussion or your bass percussion, and normally I attribute that to the closed hats and the open hats. And then I've got thickener loops, and thickener loops normally come in 2 or 3 different types. I normally have something for the mid-range, something for the high end, and maybe something for the low. Then the final bit is rides and claps, so the extras and additional bits. First of all, I'll get into the backbone. On the backbone, you've got closed hats and open hats. You've got the 2 different types here. Now, for my open hat on this track, what I've done is I have taken 2 similar sounding open hi-hat samples and I have panned one to the left and one to the right. It sounds like this. I'm then playing both of them at the same time, and because they're slightly different and they're pitched, it creates a nice wide stereo effect, which sounds like this. Now the closed hats, they sound like this. So closed hats can be a bit tricky to stop them sounding so static and unnatural. There's a couple of ways you can do that. Number one way that I use is I use Ableton's auto pan. You can see the settings for it there. If you want to pause and make a note of those settings for your own use, that's fine. What I'm doing here is I've just got a slight wobble on it set to 1/8, so each hit of the hi-hat goes from left to right. In addition to that, what's also really useful to do here is to vary the amount of velocity that's on each individual note. So I just kind of go in and just click around on a few of them, make them look a bit random, give it a little bit of variation. And the result is a lot more movement in the hi-hats, as you can hear here. Once you've got your backbone percussion in place, you're going to want to start thinking about how to thicken that up, because together it just sounds like this. Already sounding wide, but sounding a little bit thin. So let's thicken that up. So the main thing to consider when you are stacking your different types of percussion is to make sure that each individual bit of percussion that you're stacking or loops that you're using have a different sonic signature to them. So you want them to sound different. You don't want you to be stacking up loads of similar sounding percussion bits, because that's just going to sound really washy. So generally what I like to do is I like to focus on having a mid-range thickener, a high-end thickener, and perhaps look at the stereo field and panning them left and right just to make sure that they all sit right in the mix. The first thickener loop we're going to look at here is this loop. It sounds like this. Now the reason I've used this loop is because I like the groovy, scratchy feel to it. It also doesn't have a lot of hiss to it. It sounds a lot more lower down in the register compared to the closed and the open hats. To make the percussion a bit thicker, I've added Waves Doubler, which is a harsh effect plugin. Just to make it sound a bit wider, I'll play it with it on and with it off. You can hear that when it's on, it really pushes it out across the stereo field there, which is exactly what you want, because you've got your percussion, your backbone percussion smack in the middle. Let's just play that really quickly against the backbone percussion. You'll see what I mean. So already we're starting to see that there's some thickness there. For the second thickener loop, it sounds like this. Now the reason I've chosen this one is because it's the opposite of the last loop. It's quite quick, it's quite ticky, it's got a lot of high end to it. I've also panned this one slightly to the right to complement the left pan of the previous thickener loop. And again, if you put that together with all the others we have so far, it sounds like this. I'll turn this thickener loop off. You can hear with it on, it's got that extra tick, extra punch in the high end there, nice and crispy sounding. So the third thickener loop sounds like this. And the reason why I've chosen this thickener loop is purely because of the low end. So the low end on this one is nice and rounded, it sounds wobbly, and it just sounds nice and thick. And you'll also notice that I've EQ'd out some of the mid-range in there because I just wanted the low end chunkiness of this, because all the other loops don't have any warm low end to them. So now that we've got all of our thickener loops together, this is what it sounds like. So now that you've got all of your main percussion in there, including your backbone and your thickener loops, you're going to want to get that sounding nice and gelled together. So the best thing to do here is just to run it all into a bus, into a group channel in Ableton, and then just apply some compression to it and some EQ if needed. In this case, I've got a little bit of EQ just ducking out slightly on the low end so that the other instruments in the mix can come through and the percussion doesn't get it all muddy and cloudy. And then I've just got some compression on this one. In this one of my favorite compressors to use for percussion in Ableton is Ableton's Glue compressor. They have a fantastic preset which is called Drum Full Parallel, and you can use the dry wet knob there to affect the amount of compression that you want to apply. I personally find that this compressor does a really good job of just bringing everything together and making it sound nice and impactful. Finally, once you've gotten your main percussion in there, you can then start adding all the other loops that you want to add. In this particular instance, I have claps and a ride. So for the claps, these are a little bit different. Now on this one, I've just got a clap sample. And it's playing quite a rapid sequence there. Now, similar to the closed hats, I've put an auto pan with the same settings on it, and that gives it that stereo. But the important thing is I've put that auto pan before the reverb. And what that does is it means that the reverb is centered and wide, and the claps kind of go from side to side. Now, as for the reverb, I've used Valhalla Room because I absolutely love Valhalla Room, giving it a big pre-delay of 200 milliseconds. So it takes about a quarter of a second before the delay on the reverb actually kicks in, and that gives it a rhythmic kind of delayed reverb effect. Now, as for the rides, those are a pretty simple affair. I've just gotten a regular ride cymbal. I've put some EQ on it just to duck out everything but the absolute high end, and then I've used the auto pan here to give it a side-chained thumping, pumping effect. Again, if you want to pause and make a note of the settings, go ahead. Now altogether, all the percussion sounds like this. Well guys, that's all I've got time for. I've tried to cram in as much as possible. I hope you have understood it all, and I hope I've inspired you to level up your percussion. Guys, thank you for watching Tranceportal in the studio. Do not forget to like and subscribe to our Tranceportal YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Go ahead and get involved, and thank you again for watching.